Hello and welcome to the Under Center podcast. You're watching the NFL show. Week 5 is in the books. This week you've got the Malloy boys. We're going to look at some of the storylines that have cropped up so far this season. I'm back, so expecting a bit of a chaotic show. I'm holding a mic in my hand. I don't have a desk. I'm sitting on a bed. We're going for the casual vibes of podcasting that seems to be sweeping Instagram. Rain, did you get to see much of the football? Obviously, myself and yourself were at the Dublin game last week. Did you see much of the football this week?
Yeah, I saw a little bit. Obviously, my attention was taken during the early window by the Panthers, so I didn't get to see a whole lot of that game or that slate of games. But yeah, really interesting week this week. A lot of, I would say, surprising results coming off the back of it. So yeah, can't wait to dive in.
Yep. We're obviously without Dara. He's off enjoying his holidays, the late holidays for him. Hope he's grabbing the last of the sun in Europe. But we got a little bit of a dig out in the breaking news, gave us somewhere very natural to start. It's been announced there in the last maybe few hours that Joe Flacco has been traded from the Browns to the Bengals. Lost the starting slot at the Browns. They started Dylan Gabriel. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but he's obviously moved to the Bengals. We'll get the obvious out of the way first, Rain. The Bengals clearly get better. Jake Browning has been suffering over the last couple of weeks. A lot of the posts on social media were like, get anybody else in. He drowned. He threw a lot of interceptions last week. He did not look good. I think Joe Flacco is probably the obvious choice in terms of who's maybe available at those backup slots. I think Carson Wentz might have been another one, but he's got a lot of action now for the Vikings, so he's a little bit too valuable. I think Flacco offers kind of the very traditional stand-in set of skills where he's got that kind of long-term NFL experience. He'll pick up a playbook, at least concept-wise, fairly fast. He's got a very low ceiling, but also I would argue a pretty high floor just in this particular situation. I mean, you're talking about the experience. He's going to limit the damage in some way. And I think it's kind of underrated important, Reen. When I was kind of looking here, prepping for the show, Cincinnati Bengals, obviously 2-3, hovering at 400. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are top of that division right now at 3-1. We saw them. They have a very strong defense, but they're absolutely not infallible. I think it's very important for the Bengals to stay competitive in this division, especially with the Ravens and the Browns looking how they are so far this season.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there that the division is certainly there for the taking for Cincinnati. But yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher for me, though, going with Joe Flacco in this instance. One of the talking points that I had kind of thought about mentioning this week was the Shedeur Sanders situation, and should a quarterback needy team pick him up this in the before the trade window finishes. And yeah, it kind of speaks a little bit to the Shedeur situation in terms of Flacco getting picked up ahead of him. I think you're probably paying Flacco more money, considering Shedeur was a fifth-round pick. But I don't know if he was the best option on the table at the moment, to be honest. If I'm looking at Joe Flacco as a person, and that offense of the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm not sure they gel very well. Joe Flacco has lived his entire career kind of working around elite defense, playing with short fields, and taking the opportunities that are presented to him, i.e., more so the underneath routes and that sort of thing. That's not really the way that the Bengals offense has operated since the Joe Burrow era has been ushered in. The guy I probably would have been looking at if I'm in a desperate QB situation would have been Jameis Winston. I understand there's some significant risk involved there in terms of, his turnover rate and that sort of thing. But Joe Flacco has not been infallible this year either. I believe he has 10 turnovers this year through the first 5 weeks, and that's only on 4 games. So that's quite a high turnover rate for a guy of his caliber. I'm not sure that the Bengals get better from this. Does he offer more consistent QB play? Yes, he does. But does he represent a better chance of winning than Jake Browning? It's to be seen.
Yeah, look, I see exactly where you're coming from. I would say that's absolutely what they went for. They went for that consistent, they went for the floor, and you'd have to argue Jameis Winston's floor is absolutely below Joe Flacco's, even if the upside is he's way more electric. I see what you mean. He's much more dynamic in that offense. I think historically, like going back to the Andy Dalton days, I think Joe Flacco's a much better match to that offense. I think, in fairness, the offense has got more dynamic with Joe Burrow there, and I think Jameis offers you a little drop off. The most success we've seen from teams that have to use their backups is when the backup can match in some way the playing style or the offensive style of the quarterback that they're replacing. Obviously, there's a drop off as there should be if they're a backup, but when those fits can be a little bit better, I think teams tend to do better. So yeah, I would agree with you in the terms of there could have been more forward looking choices for the Bengals. It doesn't surprise me only because if you follow the logic of don't rock the boat too much, don't let it get away from you. You're in second place. Don't let the teams behind you catch you, and see if you can keep the Steelers honest going through the division. I think then Joe Flacco makes a lot of sense. Looking at the Browns side of things, I think you're probably right. I think this is an indictment on Shedeur Sanders. I think it's been the whole season has been, whether you're a fan or a critic doesn't really matter. The reality is they took Gabriel and they took Shedeur Sanders pretty much at the same spot in the draft. Obviously, Sanders a little bit later. But they clearly took those because, in my estimation, their pre-draft analysis of the two quarterbacks didn't separate them very well. And so when Sanders was still on the board, they decided to take him, have a QB battle. They've had all their pre-draft look. They've had all preseason, and now they've had 5 weeks of regular season action. And Shedeur Sanders has not closed any of the gap to Dylan Gabriel. So they've had, in every look they've picked Dylan Gabriel. So I think this is really poor for Sanders. It doesn't bode well, in my opinion, for his NFL career, because the team that's been looking at you, and look, maybe they're secretly delighted. I don't know. Maybe they're keeping him under the vest. For sure, it was a blow when they decided to get rid of Flacco, but I mean, you could kind of see it coming. That's how the depth chart was. I think I didn't like his prep conference where he kind of mouthed the words, although I also understand probably a little bit of his frustration where he's saying, look, no other third string quarterback is getting interviewed in the locker room with, like, not just one guy, like 6-7 people around him asking him, how do you feel about not getting the starting job? Like, in fairness to him, what's he supposed to say? He has to follow, even if he follows the party line, then the questions are, oh, well, does he really want it? Like, did he just expect it because of his name? Is he showing the fight he's supposed to show? He can't win. But at the same time, I think he'll be stung a little bit that it wasn't Flacco back to 3 and him up to 2. They clearly said it's Gabriel and Flacco are the two guys we're trying to pick between. We've seen Flacco, let's put Gabriel in. And looking at what they saw on the weekend, Rian, how did you, because that's another storyline, how did you think Gabriel did? Obviously, went to London, the Vikings got the bounce back win. Me personally, I watched most of that game. It was the early game, so it was the only one really on the slate for us here. I watched it. I think, obviously, the Vikings were the better squad, in my opinion. But I don't think Dylan Gabriel drowned. I think he had some really nice throws. He did some nice things. I think maybe lacked that final cutting edge just to get the victory. But I think he did really well. Well, not really well. I think that's overstating it. But I didn't see anything that was like, oh boy, right, Flacco's getting straight back in next week if he had hung around. I suspect we'll be seeing Dylan Gabriel now for the rest of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if he has better games than he had on Sunday. And he will most likely have worse games as well. So I think he did pretty well for his first NFL career start.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. The only thing I'd argue with you there is I thought the Browns looked like the better team on the day, particularly in the first half. They seemed to be able to move the football a bit better than the Vikings were able to. Now, of course, that Browns defense is pretty elite, so it is always going to be tough to move the football there. I don't think that Gabriel did a whole lot wrong in this game. He made the throws he was meant to make. He got his touchdown. The one to Njoku really impressed me. It was an absolute dart to the back of the end zone, split the coverage, very, very nice, good vision on that play. For me, what lost them the game was very, very conservative play calling towards the end of the game. They had a good few drives in that fourth quarter that they just insisted on running the football. And I understand the mindset there, but your quarterback has been doing a good job for the first three quarters. Why not give him the opportunity to go ahead and seal off that victory? So, yeah, tough one for the Browns to take, but I think they'll be happy with the way that Gabriel played in that game. And like you said, Fiona, I don't see Shedeur getting a look in if he continues to play the way that he did.
Yeah, look, I think Gabriel's next test is all these rookie QBs. It's going to be the first time. Obviously, Judkins is having a fantastic rookie season as well. He had 110 yards on 23 carries. That's a big workload. It's also a big return. It'll be interesting to see now what happens the first time they play a team that really manages to stop the run and forces Gabriel to beat them. That's the challenge for these young QBs. I agree with you. I liked what he did as well in terms of ad-libbing a little bit. He got that fine balance. He didn't have that kind of what we see a lot with quarterbacks like Caleb Williams, where they've been very effective at ad-libbing and stretching the play and prolonging the play to the point where in college it's fantastic, and in the NFL you just end up getting swallowed and making the play worse and understanding when to get rid of the ball. I think Gabriel did a good job of balancing that. He extended when he could. He didn't try and overreach. He didn't think he was going to win the game all on his own or with his legs necessarily. He didn't really scramble whatsoever, but he kept some plays alive, and I thought that was a good balance and nice to see without overextending himself. That was obviously the big two talking points for the Vikings. One of the other things I want to talk about, obviously, because we don't have the lads, so I want to get it in nice and early. The two Seahawks fans on the podcast. As you know well, Rian, I'm a bit of a wind-up merchant, especially if I feel like I get a chink in the armor. The guys are feeling very confident in their Seahawks so far. Obviously, 3-1, a fantastic return for them the first 4 weeks. I have made the prediction internally, and I'd like to make it public now. I think that the Seahawks are going to go 1-3 for the next 4 weeks. Now, obviously, we've had the first loss so far. That was this week against the Buccaneers, a very good Buccaneers comeback, as they seem to be making a habit of this week. But the guys kind of laughed it off and guffawed. But I have to say, I'm liking the look of my prediction now. I think they had that Buccaneers game down as a win, or maybe a difficult game. They've also got to play the Jags, who've been doing really well so far. Very good defense, although a lot of that has been driven by turnovers. And I don't know what the rate is, but it's something ridiculous. It would be impossible to sustain that over the course of the season. But still, a very, very good defense so far. And they've also got the Commanders, who obviously are my team, a little bit biased. But I think when they've got Jaden Daniels in there, they showed against the Chargers, a very good Chargers team that even going 10 points down, which in previous seasons would have probably led to a 35-point drumming, he came back and they pretty much dominated the second half. So I'm beginning to feel like there is 3 losses there in the next 4 games for them.
It's certainly a possibility. I mean, just looking at that Jags team, for instance, they have been a team that's been able to force turnovers and also get a little bit of pressure on the quarterback. Sam Darnold, as much as I respect him, I think he does struggle with pressure a little bit and is prone to throwing some balls into coverage that he shouldn't throw into. So, yeah, I'd 100% agree with you that that's a losable game. And I mean, even the 4th game on that slate, right?
That's
is
the Texans.
Yeah. The Texans are not doing as well as they should be doing, but the talent in that roster is quite high. They still have CJ Stroud at quarterback. They still have those 3 fantastic wide receivers out wide, and they still have a pretty decent running game. So there is a little bit to be sweating about if you're a Seahawks fan, particularly with the injuries that they have on the defensive side of the football. They've been hit really, really hard this year, as of a lot of teams in the league. But the Seahawks on the defensive side of the ball, missing out on Witherspoon, that's tough. I think one of their edge rushers is gone as well. That's very tough. So yeah, this is going to be squeaky bum time for the Seahawks, because before they know it, their season could be over.
Yep. And especially with the 49ers playing quite well, which I think we might touch on a little bit later. But I do want to stick just with the Buccaneers at the moment. They're 4-1. Pretty much every game, I think all 5 games have been within a score. First time a team has done that. Won 4 out of the 5 games. They've all been losing in the last minute of the game, I believe, or definitely the last 2 minutes. It's not sustainable football, but it's very exciting football. They're obviously leading the division your Panthers are in at the moment, 4-1. The Panthers, I think, have been up and down. I really liked what I saw of the Panthers. Dowdle, I think, had a really good game of the weekend. Uh, Bryce Young, I think, is indicative of guys being labeled, quarterbacks being labeled when the rest of the team is not in place. I mean, he absolutely did not play well, but I think it's extremely underrated in the NFL how difficult it is to play if the rest of the squad is not on point. I think even the Ravens are kind of showing this now, how poor that defense is after a couple of injuries. Back-to-back seasons, Bryce Young, obviously last season, much better. First season, he had that big benching stretch that was really tough. So how do you, first of all, I guess, how do you see the Panthers so far at 2-3? And then what have you made of the Buccaneers? Do you think it's sustainable? Are they the team to catch? And any concerns about the Falcons? I think it's fair to say the Saints are in the bin, and that's a bit of a dumpster fire they've got going there. No quarterback basically on the roster.
Yeah, for me with the Panthers this season, I think it's they're not where they should be at this stage in the tenure of both the head coach and the quarterback. Last week's win versus the Miami Dolphins, in my eyes, was a bit of a fluke, to be honest. Now, obviously, Rico Dowdle had a great game, 200 yards on the ground. Not many running backs in the NFL can say that about themselves, to have a 200-yard game under their belt. But they were playing against, I believe it was the worst ranked rushing defense in the league up to week 5. And really, the bit that upsets me about the Panthers is the way they get themselves into very, very difficult situations at the start of the game. Most of it has been on the shoulders of Bryce Young. The fumble in the first half in the Miami game was egregious. The pick that he threw as well was not something he should have thrown at all, and it was an overthrow between two men. So that was a very difficult one to watch. That's something that he needs to really mature out of his game, because he's put us in a hole a few times this season. The one that I remember most vividly is against Arizona. He had a very similar kind of start to that game where he had 2 turnovers before Kyler Murray even touched the football. So you can't keep getting yourself into those positions. He has performed admirably since then. Like that second half of the game, he actually played very, very well. He was a competent quarterback, leaned on the run, but that's what the Panthers are set up to do. But yeah, moving on to the Buccaneers, I think the Buccaneers are head and shoulders above the rest of the opposition. I understand that they're winning close in all their games, and they're maybe not performing as well as they could be. Like some of the teams that they're coming up against, they should be putting away pretty early, but they do have some good wins under their belt. And I think the main thing that they have going for them is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield has been performing exceptionally well. He looks like he's able to win games for that team. So I expect them to continue to do so. As for the Falcons, they're a little bit of a weird one for me, to be honest. They didn't look like they were up to anything against the Panthers, but then played exceptionally well.
Dismantled the Commanders, yeah.
Versus the Commanders, right, and had a great game on the ground as well, where they had practically nothing against the Panthers. So it was a bit of a head scratcher. I don't see them as like contenders for the division title, but nor do I see any of the 3 teams in there as contenders to the Buccaneers. I think probably I'm confident that the Panthers will come out second in that division, but I don't see them being good enough to grab one of those wildcard spots moving on later into the season.
Yeah, I think the two games, the Falcons Panthers matchups, the two matchups this season are going to be, if you go by Premier League kind of connotations, that they're 6 pointers, right? If you can beat them, if someone can get the double on that, that's going to go really hugely to get you into the playoffs, or at least second place in the division. We'll have to see how the rest of the league goes. I want to spend 2 minutes on the Indianapolis Colts, because over the last few seasons we haven't talked about them a whole lot. They've been up and down. They had quarterback woes, pretty much quarterback woes since the retirement of, and the name is gone.
Phil Rivers.
No, the one after that.
Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck has been a problem. They have been absolutely demolishing teams so far this season. Something crazy like 190 points so far out of the 5 games or something like that, second only to the Peyton Manning Colts back in the 2000s. This has been really impressive. I have my doubts, and I can't figure out, Rian, is this just my bias from years gone by, or is this a little bit of an apparition and we should still be dubious about the Indianapolis Colts, about whether they can sustain this dominance over the rest of the season? I'm going to be conservative, maybe a bit grumpy. I'm going to say I don't trust them. I'm always going to ask for the eyeballs, for the proof is in the pudding. They have passed the eyeball test though. I don't know. I'm really convicted. I'm going around in circles. I want to write them off. At the same time, I'm looking at them going, the vibes are good. The eye test is good. Daniel Jones, he's done this before though, right? He got the New York to the playoffs, and then he kind of bounced with his $200 million check. So I don't know how much. I guess, do you trust Daniel Jones? Maybe is the question.
Yeah, like yourself, I kind of had the vibe going into the season that the Colts were going to be the Colts, under the radar, not good, not bad kind of team, but they've really shown that they are good this season. I have my Duke jersey, number 13, over here. That's what he wore at Duke, Mr. Jones. Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's difficult to get a read on Daniel Jones. He had some really, really bad play in New York, but the supporting cast around him was atrocious. So we did see him miss some wide open reads, but when your confidence has been shattered to bits by poor O-line play, poor wide receiver room. True, he did have Saquon Barkley, but not half the time. He was injured half the time in his tenure there. It's difficult to get a decent read on a quarterback. So he looked great at Duke, and he's looking really, really good here at Indianapolis. He has a run game to rely on. Jonathan Taylor's playing excellently. That defense is stifling, so he's getting short fields, that sort of thing. And he has some weapons at wide receiver and even in that tight end room. So I think he's got a really, really good supporting cast around him. We might end up seeing kind of I'll hold my hands up and say I am not a Jalen Hurts fan. I don't think he's an elite quarterback in the NFL. But put the right guys around him, he's good enough to do a good job. Do I see the Indianapolis Colts getting to a Super Bowl or winning a Super Bowl? No, probably not. But, I mean, it is the AFC, and that is a bad division, so they might end up making a run in this playoff. So, yeah, I can't see any reason why they shouldn't at this stage in the season.
Yep, really interesting. I'm keeping an eye on the AFC South this season, even just for the Texans' woes. I mean, the Titans are awful. It's interesting to see how Ward is managing it. I kind of liked his comments. I understand why the head coach didn't necessarily like it, but he was like, look, we are bad football team. We're playing bad football, and I'm going to stand up here until we figure out a way not to play bad football. You can't do that. You can't put that bulletin board out there. But at the same time, I see what he was doing. It's a young guy's mentality, I think, maybe.
He got sound bit. He got sound bit. So what everybody heard from that interview was I'll keep it a book, we're ass. But the bit that followed was the right statement, you know? He probably could have said it more eloquently, maybe. But he did have a very positive press conference thereafter. It's just that one soundbite that killed him. So yeah, look, I admire his uh, his mentality, shall we say?
Yeah, so I'm really focusing on the AFC South this year. Obviously, we talked about the Titans, Texans as well, 2-3. They found a bit of mojo. Was it against a good team? Not particularly, but sometimes that's all you need. It doesn't really matter. You just need to feel like your offense is back in the groove. They've suffered a little bit, so maybe they'll get it in. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think it's been a while since they've been up this high. They might be feeling a little bit of a nosebleeds, but it's very interesting. I think having the Colts and the Jaguars get out just to an early lead in the division, and the momentum or the feeling that the Texans are starting to build momentum. I really like that as a kind of a three team battle at the top of that division. At the start of the talking about the Colts, I mentioned vibes to try and set up this next thing, and Renew also helped the setup on this, mentioning Hurts. The vibes when I look at it, we spoke about this offline, and you wanted to bring up the Eagles in relation to the Chiefs, and we will talk to the Chiefs later on. But for me, the big comparison is there's a lot of talk about how the Eagles are winning close, winning ugly, and the vibes are awful. And then I compared it in our chat to the Buccaneers, where they're also winning close, historically winning close with the comebacks that they've been having. But the vibes are sky high. I think the quarterbacks have a lot to do with that. I think quarterback talent and also quarterback personality has a lot to do with that. But what I want to know is where are all these bad vibes coming from in the Eagles? They're obviously Super Bowl champs. A little bit of extra mental pressure that comes with that. Everybody knows it immediately puts a target on your back. You get everybody's 100% every week then. But you've got all the rumors about AJ Brown. Does he want to go? Is he feeling happy? He's always been a little bit prickly personality in that sense. Jalen Hurts isn't that much of a rah-rah guy, I get the sense of. He's like a little bit. For me, ultimately, the team is very similar to the Super Bowl winning team last year. They still got Bond on the defense, really nice corners. They've got Saquon Barkley out running back, Jalen Hurts. Whatever you say about him, Sirianni knows how to use him within the game. They've had slow starts before. This will not necessarily rattle them. And AJ Brown is still a fantastic wide receiver, whether or not he's interested. If you get him the ball, all of a sudden, wide receivers tend to turn it on pretty quickly then. So from your point of view, where is the vibes and why are they so off? Everyone's drawn it more back to the 2023 campaign than the 2024 campaign. I don't see where the difference is. I don't really understand where the narrative of the vibe. I see it, but I don't really know where it's coming from. Can you put your finger on that?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to say. I guess they don't have a guy in that, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. They don't have a guy who motivates that team. I mean, Saquon Barkley is an excellent runner of the football, but he seems to be a relatively low-key kind of personality, and we see that throughout that offense. They obviously lost Brandon Graham on the defensive side of the ball in this offseason, and that's a huge, huge loss. He was the guy who got that defense going. But you're right. The vibes do seem off, but I can kind of understand why, to be honest. Like, I get the results are coming, but the play is not there. Like, they've had a couple of games where they've been dangerously close to going under 200 yards of offense during the entire game. I think they did go under 200 yards of offense in that win over the Chiefs. So that kind of thing is demoralizing. Although you're getting the win, it's demoralizing to see difficult football to watch if you're a fan, and I think maybe the players are feeding off that as well. You know, I understand they're at 4-1, but the fans are on their back now. They need to start playing good football as well as winning these games. So yeah, it is. It's a tricky balance to find.
It's funny you mentioned balance because I think that's part of where this is coming from. I think this is a little bit in Sirianni's playbook. I heard one of the shows over the weekend, a little clip on Instagram talking about how last season they were very wobbly until the bye week, and then they seemed to be able to settle things down after that. My sense is that Sirianni has a very rigid and a very structured start to the season. He wants to get them into game scenarios, and he says almost as rigid as saying we're going to run the ball in the first half and we're going to pass the ball in the second half. Results be damned, we're going to figure out what works for us and what doesn't work for us live in game. And so I think that's maybe some of where the thing, if they can keep the boat steady, bye weeks are starting to roll in now. We've got the international weeks. So I think that I presume the Vikings will be on a bye week this week. So we're starting to get the first bye weeks. I wouldn't be surprised now as we turn the corner into the bulk, the meat of the season. We see the Eagles start to play a little bit more consistently. It won't be flair. It's going to have to rely on Saquon Barkley to deliver the flair. But, I mean, if they've got big body wide receivers, plenty of pace over the top. Dotson was one of those guys. He made some great catches there in the last game. He never really got a good run at the Commanders, but I really liked them. I thought we missed, or we were going to miss his major window, especially with Daniels, but ultimately couldn't keep it. So if you're an Eagles fan, you're taking the pain at the moment. I think if I'm an Eagles fan, I see a glimmer of light, or I'm holding on to the delusion of Coach Sirianni that he knows what he's doing and he's just kind of trying to figure out this team and not assuming it's the same team as he had last year. He's doing his reevaluation. What are we good at? Where have we got weaknesses? When and where can we pull out games? And ultimately, he might be talking to this team in the background and saying, look, we knew we were going to have pain for the first 5 weeks, but here we are at 4 wins. So there's not much we can really complain about. Let's go turn this game around and get back on it. But I'm going to leave that there for now. We spoke just beforehand about the Chiefs, and I misspoke. You tied the Chiefs to the Ravens, saying, "Is it time? Is it time to panic for either of those two teams?" I'm going to start with the Chiefs, and I'm going to say no. I think they always have a way to get back in. From an NFL perspective, I'm kind of delighted to see the veil slip a little bit. The air of invincibility is gone, but they're still an excellent football team. And as you said, the AFC this year, for whatever reason, does not feel as strong as it has the last couple of years. The Bills are still where they were. I think the Chiefs have taken a step back.
The Bills lost to the Patriots, though, at the weekend and didn't look good doing it. So
I mean, that's what I mean. But I feel like they always had that slight fallibility to them in years gone by, but that you knew in the big games, Josh Allen would pull through until the playoffs, and then he'd find a way to slip up and not make it to a Super Bowl. That's been his big Achilles heel so far. But look, I don't think there's any undefeated teams. I mean, I know for a fact that's a stupid statement. There are no undefeated teams, and it feels to me much earlier than most seasons. By week 5, we've made sure we've got no unbeaten teams, and that feels right. I don't see anyone that's completely well-rounded, that hit the ground running, that's avoided injuries, and that are gonna be a powerhouse for the rest of the season. I think every single team in this league feels beatable to me now. But moving on to the Ravens, I'm quite dour. I'm quite down on the Ravens. I don't think it's their fault. I think in any NFL club, you're going to get injuries. You're going to have to manage those injuries. And it's not always about the position. It's about the importance of that position to your specific scheme. And I think for whatever reason this season, I think especially on defense, that Ravens team have just been gutted right up the middle. Queen was out. What's his name? Hamilton was out on the back end. And I think they're also missing the nose tackle Pierce, aren't they? Or am I dreaming that? Maybe someone will have to fact check me on that. But for a team that needs or that has relied on having that backbone of a defense, to have that removed out from underneath you, whatever about the rest is going on, I don't think it excuses the level of drop off. But hey, this is the NFL. Other teams are ready to jump on you. They're ready to take advantage. And the difference between the number one seed and the number one pick is not that great. And I think that's what we're seeing this year with the Ravens. So I'd say they're going to pick up at the end of the season, but I think they're too far gone. I think there's been too much damage too early in two key positions. And I just don't think they're going to have enough to claw back the deficit they've started with.
Yeah, I mean, like with Patrick Queen and Kyle Hamilton, those two guys are the core of that Ravens defense. Like Hamilton's not your true safety. He kind of plays as that hybrid strong safety, nearly a linebacker, in the box a lot. Great pass coverage.
Jamal Adams, except good, basically.
Except good, yeah, exactly. So he's a huge loss. And then after that, your next quote unquote quarterback on that defense is going to be Roquan Smith, right in the middle of that linebacker core. Really, really tough to lose those players. But you know, the next man up mentality has to be there. You know, there's other teams in the league who are struggling with injuries. The 49ers, for instance, have got injuries across the board and are still managing to pull results out. Have the Ravens had a tough go of it this year in terms of the oppositions that they faced? Yes. But they still should be doing better than they're doing. And like you said, Fionn, I think it's going to be a tough thing for them to get back to a position where they're fighting for playoffs this season. I can't see it happening, even if they do come good at the end of the season. There's a lot of competition in that AFC side of the draw, and those wildcard spots are going to be really, really tough to come by. So I'm not 100% convinced about the Ravens this year.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that'll save them is there's a lot of very poor teams in the AFC. The Jets, the Browns, the Titans, the Raiders. I don't have the schedule up in front of me, but if they come across those, all of a sudden, if you get 3 of those or 2 of those, that's 2 more wins in the win column, and suddenly things are looking up. Lamar Jackson's going to come back eventually. It's not a season-ending injury, so he'll definitely give them a boost. And they've got nice tight ends. They've still got a lot of that offense going. They'll need to figure out some way to stop the bleeding on defense. I think they're just giving up. What are they? They're going to average 400 yards of defense yards allowed per game or something like that. They're on
even
pace.
Points has been a historically bad start to the season. I think they're averaging like 37 points conceded.
Yeah, I think. Look, I think if you're gonna say that the Jaguars can't keep up the defense that they've got going, you'd have to say the Ravens don't feel like a historically bad defense on paper, even with the injuries. Let's see. You always got to prove it, but that's where my mind is going. I want to also touch. I've got the division tables here in front of me, and I've noticed as well. Obviously, the NFC West, I think, is where we'll move to next. There's 2 big talking points, really. We'll start off with maybe the more negative one, let's say. Arizona Cardinals, a master class in how to lose a game. I guess one of the big talking points is obviously losing the ball before the end zone. That spiraled into a whole new story. The coach came over, very aggressive talk with the player. I don't remember his name. Yeah, DeMercado. I think DeMercado did a good job not escalating that on the sideline. I did see some commentary online saying I think that was a little bit out of hand. The coach obviously apologized now this morning as well. I think that was the right thing to do. Having said that, I am a big believer that the NFL is the top. We've had a disagreement before, Rian, about I do believe in the NFL. You should be putting every single point you can on an opposition. Like, bury them. Don't take the foot off the gas. You're like, nah, like, this is professional. These are men. You got to have some respect. I think in that same vein, I'm a much more hardliner. I don't really care who you are. If you drop the ball a yard before the end zone, you are cut from my team. That is unacceptable. Whatever about a fumble, and I mean a legitimate fumble, because I know statistically that's classified as a fumble. If you're jolted out, or even if you're diving, some of those ones that people are a little bit like, don't reach for the end zone or anything, I can live with those. I cannot live with an untouched dropping the ball early. It's just unforgivable. You're paid astronomical money. This just cannot happen. At the professional level, it just cannot happen. I don't know. Are you hardline like me on this one?
Yeah, 100%. What I will say is, before I go into this rant, is that's not the reason that that Cardinals team lost that game. They gave up a massive, massive lead in that game, and that's the second time they've done that this season. Now, they were blessed to come away with a victory versus the Carolina Panthers, but they did let I think it was a 21-point lead just evaporate in that one, and they did something pretty similar in this one. But I'm 100% on your side in relation to the dropping the football before the goal line. It's a ridiculous, ridiculous thing that should not be happening in the NFL, and we're seeing it every single year now. When I was playing in the Netherlands, our coach told us, if you get in the end zone, you touch the football on the goalposts. That's when you release the football. After you have touched the goalposts with the football. That way, there is no ifs, buts, or ands about whether you got into the end zone before you dropped the football. Touch it on the goalposts. If I was an NFL coach, that is 100% a rule I would be bringing in with my team. Touch the goalpost, then do whatever the fuck you want. Do your dance, do your little gritty, I don't give a shit, but make sure that ball goes in the end zone, because you're just leaving points off the board. And it's an absolute killer as well, because then it goes as a touchback, right? So that's out to the 20-yard line for the other team.
It's ball back. It's no points. You don't even get the ball on the one like you would with a kind of a tackle right at the goal line. Take your foot off the gas. Everything. It's the worst possible outcome for what should be 6 points for your team. The other point of talking point I want to say on the Arizona Cardinals is, would you say Murray is cooked now? I think he's been in this squad way too long. I think he has the ability to make absolutely electric highlights because of his running style, and the boy can throw. There's no question. But at the end of the day, at some point, you gotta put enough wins in the win column. Whether or not he was involved in losing that game, the Arizona Cardinals, if you race Kyler Murray, have not performed well enough. And I want to know, is the book stopping at Kyler Murray's desk, in your opinion, Ryan, or is this an indictment on the coaching staff, the GM, the backroom team not being able to extract enough when you have what could be, in the right system, arguably a top 10, I'm sure in some camps, a top 5 quarterback prospect? I'm not saying he is right now, but he certainly has. If he lines up enough highlights in a row, you could certainly argue that he is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the stats. I'm just looking them up here in front of me. So he has 6 touchdowns and 3 interceptions on the season, 962 yards, a couple of 200-yard games. It feels like this issue that the Cardinals have is not really on Kyler Murray's back. I do sometimes flip back and forward about whether or not QB wins is a valid stat. The main thing that I harp back to always, though, is Matthew Stafford in his time at the Lions. So he was playing on a god-awful team, dog-rough talent around him. Then he moves off to the Rams and ends up winning the Super Bowl. So it's tough for me to say that a team who's not winning is the fault of the quarterback. I mean, he has made some mistakes in his time, but who hasn't? I'd be interested to see him under a more competent head coach. It seems like everybody wants to use this kind of flair that you get from Kyler Murray on your team. Harken back to, Cliff Kingsbury. They had that kind of air raid offense, practically didn't run the football at all. And now they're kind of doing something similar with Kyler Murray. He's not this deep ball gunslinger quarterback. I think he's got good accuracy over the middle, even though he's that bit shorter. He's got good accuracy over the middle. He's got on-time throws to the sideline. I think they could change that playbook a little bit to really help him out a bit more. For me, the losses that are coming this season have been on the back of play calling as opposed to the play of Kyler Murray.
Yeah, 3 losses on the bounce. I think it's fair to say the pressure's mounting, especially it's another very tight, competitive division. You've got the 49ers on 4-1, then the 2 Seahawks, Rams at 3-2. Again, we had our little discussion at the start on the Seahawks, but the Rams, I think, have looked pretty impressive. The eye test certainly says they're better than 3-2, and this is where you get a little bit of discrepancies in scheduling and stuff, where sometimes teams can look very close, but when you dig into the schedule, some have played their harder games already. And then the Arizona Cardinals have 2 wins. They're 2-3, so they're not that far behind right now. They need to keep the momentum going. They have to stop this slide now. I'm just checking who they're playing this upcoming weekend. Could be a big game for them, the Colts. So that's going to be pretty tricky now. But at the same time, if you can pull a win out there, very important. Ray, we're going to finish up 2 last points because I think we've rambled on long enough now. But 2, I want to get your opinion on 2 player analysis. 1, the quarterback situation in the San Francisco 49ers. You're a former quarterback. How do you see this going? I find this so interesting. I was one of, and I'm not going to say I was in any way on my own here, there was a big noise. You remember when the 49ers drafted Mac Jones? Sorry, they didn't draft Mac Jones, but the rumors, Trey Lance, and the rumors were going crazy pre-draft that it was going to be Mac Jones. I was fully on board. I saw what he did at Alabama. I said that suits the San Francisco 49ers play style down to a T. Now he's in that offense. He's been playing really well. Again, it's a little bit like what we said right at the top. Is there that much of a difference in the playing style between Purdy and oh my God, I literally just said it. It's like, yeah. Is there? I don't think so. I think they're very, very similar players. They do exactly what the 49ers need them to do. You've got Christian McCaffrey and you know how to use him. So just go ahead and let him do all the damage and you just be clever. I say let him do all the damage. He had crazy amount of yards last week.
He certainly did.
Sorry, Mac Jones I'm talking about. He lit the air up. It didn't need to be McCaffrey. In fact, he had very few rushing yards. So, yeah, what's your assessment of that scenario? Where would you be going? Put your GM hat on, or sorry, your head coach hat on. Are you going to stick with the hot hand, or are you going to put Purdy back in? He's the big money. That's the only problem there.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what it boils down to at the end of the day is if you put Mac Jones in and keep him in over a healthy Brock Purdy, you admit that you made a mistake with Trey Lance, you made a mistake with Brock Purdy. A monkey on a bicycle could run this offense maybe. But yeah, Mac Jones arguably, and Al consistently says this now, I know he's a very biased Seahawks fan, but Al consistently tells us that Mac Jones has been having a better quarterback year than Brock Purdy has this season. And it's very hard to disagree with him now as he stacks up the wins and plays competently. He's not turning the ball over constantly. He seems to be a pretty cerebral player, knows what he's doing, makes the right read a majority of the time. And like I said, he's playing with that stacked offense the same way that Brock Purdy is. It's difficult to get a read on these guys as to how good they really, really are. If I'm coming at it from a point where there's no pressure coming from the fans, no pressure coming from the finance guys, no pressure coming from any outside sources, I stick with Mac Jones. Mac Jones has showed me more this season than Brock Purdy has. I don't know what you look to in Brock Purdy's game and go, that's what makes him a winner over Mac Jones. That's where he's going to win us a game where Mac Jones can't. They just seem too similar. And when you're looking at the product on the field, Mac Jones has been better this season.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think the main point for Purdy is obviously he's established that fine, he may not have any tangibles that put him way above Mac Jones or that he wins a game that Mac Jones couldn't win. But you certainly have the confidence, and he's proved it, that he will win the games that he needs to win. He's proved to have a cool head. He's proved to have the winning mentality. He's got him to the playoffs. He's gone really deep into the playoffs. The team has changed around him. So I fully accept your questions of, look, that's the past. You got to do it with the squad that you get every year. You don't get the same squad back to back hardly ever in this NFL landscape. So that'll be the big test. I think I have to be honest. I don't know when he's slated to return. Is he going to be quite deep into the season before Purdy's even eligible? He's on IR, is he? So he's at least 2 more weeks.
I didn't realize he was on IR. I only know from the initial diagnosis was like 3 to 4 weeks. So,
okay. So he might as well be
back pretty soon.
Okay. I think it'll be key to see who gets the start, the Buccaneers. I think if Mac Jones gets the start to the Buccaneers, plays well and wins, that's going to be a statement win for him in terms of that QB job. And that'll really ratchet up the question marks then, and that'll be legitimate, because then Mac Jones will have beaten a very good team and put you in a position to win. Now, I suspect whenever there's this kind of controversy, money is the driving force. It will be Purdy whenever he's ready. But as you said, I'm not sure it should be. We're going to finish up just really quickly on one of the more intriguing players in the NFL at the moment. That is obviously Travis Hunter. He's split time between the offense and the defense. We spoke earlier in the week about whether, really, you even used the word, is he a bust? He came off his best game last night so far, split a lot of time, had a decent impact on offense. Didn't have to do a whole lot on defense, 2 tackles and 1 passes defensed. Do you stand by your bust? Let's say this. I reckon it's mismanagement. I think they've gone for the gimmick. I've said all along, pick a side. He's good. He's a good wide receiver. He showed that at college. He's a good cornerback. Is he great? We don't know. But you'd have to nail him down to one position to find out. I think you're wasting any ceiling that he has by playing him on both sides. Do you put it more on him that he hasn't shown, maybe, and you feel like, look, and I'll put it like this. I think I certainly see where you're coming from with the bust terminology when you consider how high up he was picked and just the raw production they've got out of him on the back end.
Yeah. So my main thing about this is, if you look at the stats on the offensive side of the football and the stats on the defensive side of the football, neither of them jump out as a guy who deserves to be drafted in the first round of the NFL, never mind second overall. On the offensive side of the football, you know, Ted McMillan is night and day ahead of where Travis Hunter is. And I'm not even talking about stats here. I'm just talking about eye test. He looks 10 times better as a wide receiver than Travis Hunter does. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you know, he's been doing all right. He's been forced into games that maybe he didn't really need to be in. I think they were going to take things a little bit slower on the defensive side of the ball, but the Jacksonville Jaguars have suffered at the cornerback position in terms of their health. So he has been forced into a few games that maybe he didn't expect to be in. It just seems subpar on both sides of the football, like below average on both sides of the football. When you look at the kind of stats on the defensive side of the football, he hasn't been targeted very often, but when he is targeted, the receiver is making the catch 2/3 of the time. That's not really NFL superstar caliber level. And then on the offensive side, you know, he has 109 yards on the season. It's fine. He's broken a couple of big plays with his legs, which is impressive. But he also has 2 drop passes and a fumble on the season that was lost. So for me, unless he increases his play significantly on either side of the football, he has to go down in history as a bust, because subpar on 2 sides of the football is not an achievement.
Yeah.
Sure, it's a great thing to be that athletic, but you got to be contributing more than the average dude, at least on one side of the football.
Yeah, and I think, and that's where my position comes from, where it's like the management has to make a call. They need to be seeing this, because if you're a fan, you're going, well, we used an outrageously high pick on this fella, and we
Trade it
would
up
have
to
been
get him as well.
we
Trade it
would have
up.
been better having a one-way player, either a cornerback or a wide receiver. And if they'd have been performing, as you say, with the output that he's had so far, regardless of how much or little credit you want to give him for playing or where you want to put the culpability for that, the reality is, if you're looking at return in terms of stat line versus position picked, regardless of name, regardless of where, none of the stat lines line up with such a high pick first round draft. And you would be fuming if your one-way wide receiver or your one-way cornerback was playing at that standard. So we're going to leave it there. We'll continue to monitor that. I suspect they slowly, over the season goes, they'll kind of figure out what they want to do. I want to just throw our eyes really quickly to week 6. I won't ask for any picks or anything, Rian, but just want to highlight a couple of games maybe people want to keep their eye on. Obviously, for anyone not in the loop, we've got another London game this week. That'll be the Broncos against the Jets. Stick it on, 2:30 kickoff. It's going to be an absolute annihilation. The Jets are stinky this year. Expect the Broncos to put an absolute whooping on them. And then looking at the early slate of games, I think the Cardinals-Colts could be interesting. We've talked about the Colts. Are they for real? Cardinals, very up and down. But I think that's a perfect banana skin scenario. You could easily see the 2-3 Cardinals beating the 4-1 Colts there. This podcast will be watching the Seahawks against the Jaguars, as I said. Can they pull out the win, or is my ominous prediction going to reign true? And then another one for the podcast. My last one of the middle games, the early games, is going to be Cowboys-Panthers. Dowdle off 200 yards. Former Cowboys running back. Cowboys have been up and down. If you listen to the Cowboys fans, Dak's MVP. If you listen to anyone else, not quite the same enthusiasm. And then in the late game, I think the obvious one is Niners-Buccaneers. 2 4-1 teams. Excellent football game. Not sure if it's going to be high scoring. I actually suspect it might be. And if the Buccaneers will have anything to say, it'll be a last minute change of lead one way or the other. So probably worth keeping an eye on. We're just going to wrap up now. Thanks again to our sponsor for this season, Brain Rock Web Design. They helped us out with ucp.ie. Go up there and check out. We keep track of the AFI there, and we also upload all these podcasts, including the NFL Season 1. So if you're looking for somewhere to access the podcast, you can get it there. As usual, we're always active on our socials at Under Center Pod on Twitter and on Instagram, and you'll find us obviously here at YouTube Under Center Podcast. Rin, thanks a million for your time this evening. It's been great to chat. It's been great for me to get back on, going through some of the big storylines. Can't believe now next week will be 1/3 the way through the regular season already. It's flying in, and some teams are running out of time already.
Yep, certainly are. My Panthers being one of them.
Well, we'll hold our breaths and see what the Panthers can do against the Cowboys. I know which way I'll be cheering. So anyway, thank you all for listening. Rian, thanks for your time. And we'll see you all again next week.